Welcome back to the Deconversionists for your Thanksgiving special. Thanksgiving will have been yesterday by the time this airs. And hopefully you had a great holiday. Elliot and I are here once again to help unravel the con in your conversion. Today, because it's Thanksgiving, we wanted to give you something to be thankful for. Elliot and I are going to talk about the best ass on the planet. We're very excited about discussing our favorite ass. I'm going to let Elliot take you right to it.
Yeah, that's quite the intro. It's not an actual ass, like you might be thinking.
Well,
but the ass, but the ass of an animal.
It is the animal. It's the ass itself. We're going to talk about the famous ass in the Bible.
Yep.
It's the only ass actually ever discussed in the Bible specifically.
Well, maybe if we do a word search, we might find some interesting stuff in the Song of Solomon. I don't know how it translates exactly, but It could be there.
True. I think it talked about breasts, but I don't know.
It talked about something else as well, a little further down than breasts.
Yeah, well,
we'll save the explicit stuff for another episode. Maybe we'll put a warning. We're gonna deconstruct the Song of Solomon, God's pornography.
That'll be fun. and then explain how we just tell our children to go read the Bible.
Yeah. Just not that one.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because I went to a Christian private school for my high school years, and I remember when the teachers weren't around, a few of the students discussing the details found in the Song of Solomon, and they know about it. It makes a good joke. It's a curiosity, but they know it's there.
Sure.
But without the actual pictures, it's not maybe it's not as fun, I guess.
Maybe, but there's a reason book smut sells too. It could smell. I don't know, but
that's an interesting question. I wonder if there was photography back in the times of the Bible, what would have made it in?
Good question. I mean,
only our imaginations.
All we have to do is consult the Children's Picture Bible, and we'll know, because clearly they have pictures.
Did you have an actual picture Bible when you were a kid?
Absolutely, I did.
With the comics.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the best Bible ever, man. It was so much fun.
Oh my God, I would sit there in church and read that instead of listening to the sermon because it was so much more fun.
Totally fun. It was a great book.
Oh yeah,
whoever came up with that, man, brilliant. The next best thing was the Personal Promise Bible, where it was for adults, where everything was about you.
Oh, okay.
I missed that one. Yeah, they quite literally. Yeah, no, they quite literally like changed the word world to you. So when you're reading it, or they changed it to your name. So like if you're reading it, instead of saying "For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son," it literally says "For God so loved Elliot that He gave His only begotten Son." So that they personalized the entire Bible for you for a fee, obviously, but then you have your own Personal Promise Bible.
So that's essentially therapy for narcissists.
Yeah, right.
Wow. Instead of a therapist to making progress, we can read the Promise Bible and get a bigger ego. Cool.
Right.
I'll have to find one of those. Maybe that's the secret.
It becomes quite interesting though when you start running into places where it would contradict it. So like He did not come to save the world, or whatever. So it's like, wait, I thought He loved Elliot. Well, now He didn't come to save Elliot. Which is it? So they don't change it in those places. They only change it in the places where it's positive about you. So it's very much a narcissistic Bible. You're right.
Wow. Okay.
It's pretty bad. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the Personal Promise Bible. We have a personal promise to you. We are going to discuss the ass of Balaam today. And it's a good one. Very sexy story. So
yeah.
So we started last time and we just didn't have it. We just didn't have it open. We weren't reading it. And when we talked afterwards, you were like, man, I read it and it's worse than I even thought.
So I used that story as an object lesson about like the implausible events that are found in the Bible that just they sound like fiction. And so I went back to read it again for myself, and I found that it was so much worse than I had described that it actually merits a few minutes of discussion today. So what I want to do is actually read the story straight out of Numbers. I believe it's Numbers 22. And for anybody listening to this, it should be, if you're a reasonable, rational person, it should be obvious that this is just a load of garbage. So let's take it from the top.
Take it from the top.
Numbers 22, starting at verse 21. And it says, Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, or ass, like we promised, and went with the Moabite officials. But God was very angry when he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him. Balaam was riding on his donkey, and his 2 servants were with him. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand, it turned off the road into a field. Balaam beat it to get it back in the road. So just to pause real quick, that means that this angel of the Lord came down with a sword to stop Balaam. He's in the road, but only the donkey can see this angel with the sword. So what good is the angel of the Lord doing to stop Balaam if Balaam can't even see him? Okay, so goes on. Now this is a 3-part thing here where the angel of the Lord comes down 3 different times to stop Balaam in the road at different places. So this has it sounds like a fable. Like if anybody's read Aesop's fables or Grimm's fairy tales, they like to do this, this something happens again and again until you get the message. Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path through the vineyards with walls on both sides. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it pressed close to the wall, crushing Balaam's foot against it. So he beat the donkey again. Then the angel of the Lord moved on ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no room to turn, either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it lay down under Balaam, and he was angry, and he beat it with his staff. So this angel's not getting the message to Balaam, because the message wasn't for the freaking donkey. It was for Balaam to stop. So this makes no sense. I don't have to even keep repeating that.
This reminds me of there was the Shrek. I think it was Shrek 1 where they're talking about the doors or whatever they have to choose, and his top soldier is like, number 3, boss, number 3, or something like that. And he's holding up 2 fingers instead of 3 or something. Do you remember that scene?
I don't. It's been a long time.
All right, I'm just picturing the angel just being like, I tried God. I talked to the donkey, and Balaam wouldn't listen.
Well, there was a donkey in Shrek, so we're close enough, right?
No, that's true.
Any fictional story is good as another. So then it says, then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth, and it said to Balaam, what have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times? Now, a reasonable person, because now this is probably the first time since the Garden of Eden that an animal has talked to a human. So this is a big deal. If I were Balaam, I'd be far more shocked to find my donkey talking to me than knowing that there's an angel actually standing in the road with a sword. What does Balaam do? He just answers the donkey as if this is a normal conversation. Balaam answered the donkey, you have made a fool of me. If only I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now. The donkey said to Balaam, am I not your donkey, which you have always ridden to this day? Have I been in the habit of doing this to you? No, said Balaam. This is so strange. Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with the sword drawn. So he bowed low and fell face down. So now God shows him the angel. Like, why not the first, 2-3 times if we're actually trying to accomplish something here? Only appearing to an animal.
Well,
the angel of the Lord.
Funny, like he tells the donkey that he made a fool of him 3 times or whatever. I mean, I'm pretty sure after you're talking to a donkey, that's what's making a fool of you.
Yeah, definitely. Now there were, and the first part of this chapter said that there was servants with him. So these people are allegedly witnessing this, and no one's saying anything. They obviously can't see the angel, and now they're seeing Balaam and the donkey have a conversation.
Right, or just hearing Balaam have the conversation, because maybe they can't hear the donkey either.
Maybe Balaam was a schizophrenic having hallucinations, both auditory and visual, and he was hearing the donkey talk but wasn't actually talking. And then he saw the hallucination. His mind put it together. But hey, now we're using logic here. We can't do that because this is the Bible. Okay, we got to do now. If you're a fundamentalist Christian, you're taking this story as absolute fact. Like, you trust the Bible, you believe it's real history, and it's telling a real story here. So we can't add logic to this.
And so just pause for just a second. Like, interesting that like when you go to the Garden of Eden story where the serpent is talking and people project into the story, well, based on the curse, how he slithered on his belly, he must have the serpent must have had arms and legs at that point before the curse or whatever. So it's interesting that one of the things that was cursed upon animals, at least it would seem, was the serpent itself no longer has arms and legs, but apparently talking was removed from their ability as well, because no animals talked since then. And then out of the blue, this one comes along and talks. So like, what's going on here? Is this particular ass? Is he like redeemed? Is it like going to heaven? Like, what the heck happened? Why is he? And then why after this do no more animals talk? As far as I can remember,
it would be great if we had some explanations, but that's the one thing that we don't get from the Bible is explanations. We get plot holes, just exactly like that. We have to make stuff up like you just did to make it make sense. Like maybe all animals could talk. Maybe part of the curse was removing their ability to speak. Because it does say in the Garden of Eden story that the serpent was of all the animals like the most crafty. Well, that implies that maybe the rest of the animals had some level of intelligence too. If we're putting the serpent at the top of the intelligence pyramid.
right?
So it would be logical that they all could talk.
Maybe they were just maybe they're just way ahead. This one was just way ahead of his time in evolution. Like this dude was like kicking it.
You know what? Wouldn't it have been real convenient if a wise old owl happened to be in the garden to contradict the snake and say, "Hey, you know what, Eve? That's a bad idea. You shouldn't do that. The snake's lying to you." But then we wouldn't have much of a story.
He's going to fight the Baxoon. You know the Winnie the Pooh story, the Baxoon, where the owl was reading Winnie the Pooh's thing. He went to fight he went to talk to the Baxoon. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, you do know about that? Okay, that's funny. So okay. Hey, here's the donkey talking. He's talking to the Baxoon. All
right. Okay, here we go again. Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with his sword drawn. Okay, so he bowed low and fell face down.
Hang on, what verse? I'm doing what we used to do as Christians, where everybody has their own translation in the pew, and you're like trying your best to follow the pastor as he's reading a different translation. I'm in the NES, you're in the NIV, so where are you at?
I don't know if I assume all the actual verse numbers are the same, but that was verse 31. So now we're at verse 32.
All right, perfect.
Where the angel's finally going to talk to Balaam. Okay. The angel of the Lord asked him, "Why have you beaten your donkey these 3 times? I have come here to oppose you because your path is a reckless one before me. The donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If it had not turned away, I would certainly have killed you by now, but I would have spared it." So this is very telling. So the angel of the Lord was never going to actually appear to Balaam. He was just going to kill him when he got to him. Like, what was the point of this? Like, so God sent the donkey to save Balaam's life from his own angel? Like, it just makes no sense. Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, "I have sinned. I did not realize you were standing in the road to oppose me. Now, if you are displeased, I will go back." Well, that could have saved us a whole lot of problems here, saved Balaam a whole lot of problems if the angel of the Lord had just appeared in the first place. Like, what was the entire point of the donkey being injected into this, stopping Balaam, and then talking to him? Like, what if the angel of the Lord could have just stood in the path, showed himself to Balaam the very first time, and we would have gotten right to the punchline where Balaam's like, "Oh no, I've sinned. I should not go on my journey." But no, we had to sidetrack to this fable, this Aesop's fable, this Grimm's fairy tale, to get Balaam to do what he was going to do anyway in the first place, not go where he's supposed to go.
It's because it preaches well. It makes for a good sermon. Like you can't imagine all the applications you can draw from this. Sometimes God is trying to tell you things all around you, and you just have to pay attention to the signs. Sometimes talking donkey, you do, but other times.
That exposes what this really is. It's a story,
right?
Because it tells well. So they wrote a story.
If you're Balaam and the angel of the Lord appears to you, I mean, my first question would be like, okay, who the hell are you? And then also, why did you make my donkey talk? That's just weird.
Yeah.
That would have been my first question.
But
What?
we never get any of that. No explanations. No anything. So then the rest of the chapter is kind of irrelevant. It's just a couple more verses where Balaam then goes and does what he's supposed to do in the first place. Like, okay. If only we all had a donkey. So
Well, we all
anyway,
do
any
have an
final
ass.
thoughts on that?
We all have an ass, and if you're Ace Ventura,
Yeah.
you can ask some questions of this story, especially because it didn't make any sense. You're absolutely right. What a strange story. But, bro, when you're a Christian, I was there. I remember never even questioning that part of the story. I mean, sure, you ask the questions, but not in the way we are. Like, this seems really strange and unnecessary and stupid. Like, it's no, you're looking for the lesson in it. You're automatically assuming God has some amazing lesson here for you, and you just start applying it right out the gate. You don't realize how much this sounds like a myth
Right.
or a fable.
So I think we should deviate a little bit here. You know, we talked before that I had a plan for this, but since we're already 16 minutes in, let's just stay on this course of biblical absurdities, because this is a good example of a biblical absurdity. So
Okay,
let's get out your Bibles
get
and
out.
let's turn to Genesis chapter
Do it.
11.
Do it.
It's going to be the story of the Tower of Babel, which is just as absurd as Balaam's donkey.
No way. That's
No
no.
way.
All right,
Oh,
challenge
this is good.
accepted.
So we're going back a few hundred years here.
I mean, if we want to, we could literally go back to the serpent story, but we've already talked about that.
We could, yeah. This one will be just as good, because it shows how weak and how human God is. So we're getting in our time machine, and we're going back a few hundred years probably, because Balaam's story was in Numbers. So we're going back to Genesis. So Genesis 11. And I'll just take it from the top as well. You know, this could be a new thing. We can just we can go through scripture, break it down, and expose the plot holes. It's pretty easy. So the Tower of Babel, and it says, now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. So the assumption here is all the people are moving at the same time from wherever they were before. It's interesting. They said to each other, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. So what we see here is the implication that this had never happened before in the history of humans. Now they're all going to come together and they're going to build a city. They're going to make some progress here as a civilization. Now, in any other context other than God's context, this would be a good thing. Everybody's working together to create something so that they don't get, spread all over the earth and find themselves, in situations that maybe they can't, make the best of. So they're making the best of what they can. They're going to build a city. Hey, we got cities all over the globe right now. Like, what's the problem with this? Because we do it today. So what was wrong with doing it back then? And then another thing that's got to be pointed out here is it says, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. And they used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. This is not extremely advanced, all right? But they're going to build themselves a tower that reaches to the heavens. Now, what do you think the probability of a brick and mortar tower reaching to the heavens really is? It's not possible.
Well, I mean, I suppose I look at the sky and thought, hey, we can try and get there. But I mean, we're talking about, in a real sense, almost cavemen here, because, I mean, you got to realize this is just one chapter after the completed events of the flood.
Right.
So what's interesting right out the gate is if the flood happened, right, and all of civilization was wiped out, and there was only the 8 people that were left after the flood, you're telling me those 8 people happen to know all the trades necessary to pull off this sort of an event, I mean, it takes centuries to learn these kinds of skills and spread them across populations and civilizations. But they're going to build this tower that's going to have the stability. You know, you need architectural work, you need blueprints, you need, I mean, you know how to make the bricks for one.
Yeah.
You gotta know how to make tar. I mean, every little part of it, and then each making of a brick, you know, there's a lot that goes into it. It's kind of like there's a book called I Pencil, and I can't remember who it's by right off the top of my head, but they show you that like every little part of the pencil takes somebody else to do. Somebody has a specialty to make the metal, to make the eraser, to make the wood, to make the engraving, to get the paint on, you know, the lead, and same principle. And all this is happening one chapter after the flood has demolished the entire world.
Well, in my perspective, what makes this story such an absurdity so far, we haven't even gotten to the absurd part, but what makes it so absurd is this makes perfect sense in the context of the people that were actually writing this, because this was written a very long time ago, thousands of years ago. Maybe, I guess scholars have traced the, you know, beginnings of the book of Genesis to like 500 BC, maybe in Babylon. So
they're
in
reading
their
the story back into it, of course, and they have the
well, yeah, but in their perspective of that period of time, like this was pretty advanced technologies here. So,
sure.
but if we're looking at this from our time period, this is kind of a joke. I mean, we build skyscrapers that are, you know, 1,000. I don't know how many thousands of feet high, but if
a worldwide flood happens tomorrow, then, you know, 10 years from now, we're not going to be able to building those, you know, skyscrapers with just 2 people or 8 people, you know, on Earth being able to spread all that. So, but you know, interesting because I mean, this was one of the reasons why I was a local flood advocate and a covenant creationist and all that, because you can actually have civilizations existing outside of the local area in which the flood took out the population of Israel, or whatever the people of God were called at that time. But anyway, that was just a side note because it just goes to show how silly the flood story is to begin with, and then this taking place just after the flood. Maybe even if you give it a couple hundred years, that's not a whole lot of time. But back to your points, I just wanted to throw that out there just in case anybody's interested.
But I mean, compared to what we're able to accomplish now with actual steel buildings, you know, compared to like what they're going to do with a little tower they're building out of bricks, it's silly. But you know, the absurdity of that is exposed in the next verse, because it says here, but the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so that they will not understand each other. God is worried about a tower made out of bricks. Now, from the perspective of 500 BC when this was being written, maybe that made a little bit of sense, maybe. But perspective of today, how far we've come, like this little tower of bricks is on God's mind pretty heavy, to the point where he's going to destroy this. He cannot allow this to happen. Like, seriously? And what's more interesting is it says, but the Lord came down to see the city. Oh, and who's he talking to? The Lord said, if, as you know, one people speaking the same language they've begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Who's he talking to?
I mean, some argue it's the Trinity. Some argue it's the other gods that were part of the Council of Psalm 82. So there's theories on that.
But there's no explanation. It's just God talking to. I mean, if you just take the story at face value, it's God talking to the air. He's oh no, we have to stop this. And he comes down. I thought God was omnipresent. You know, we see this before in the Garden of Eden, where God comes down and walks with Adam. What did it say in the midday or whatever? You know, the Genesis account of Yahweh shows him as a very human God. You know, and we see clues to this all the time, where Adam and Eve are able to, and at least initially, hide from God, where God is like, "Where are you? I can't find you." And then here in the Tower of Babel, he comes down to see the city of the tower. God couldn't see the city and the tower from heaven. He had to come down and examine it. He's not omnipresent. He's not omniscient. He doesn't know exactly what they're doing before he has to come down and see it. It's a very human God who does human things. And we see that again in the flood story, where God regrets that he had made man. So an omnipotent, omniscient being who knows the future and also who makes no mistakes, regrets or repents that he has done something, and then he's going to take measures to fix it. It exposes God for being this human creation, and the idea that it's obvious to me in the Bible is that God's nature evolves over time. So when you get to the New Testament, now you see this completely different God who no longer comes down, no longer repents that he's done something, no longer takes direct action to try to fix it. Now he's this third heaven, all knowing God that you can never interact with. Yet in Genesis, he's doing all these things like walking with Adam or coming down to see the tower. Or, it's a huge plot hole, and it's never explained anywhere in Scripture. Like, why did God change his method of interacting with humans? Why did he change his attributes from an ignorant God who has to investigate things to now this all-knowing God who isn't even present?
So, I mean, obviously Christianity provides their answers to these questions. I don't think they're adequate answers, but there are answers, and there's attempts to explain these things. Like Josh's thing, process theology would be one way of explaining that, where he thinks that God changes, of course, over time because he's not sovereign or omnipotent or anything like that. So, in his view, he's like, well, yeah, of course God changes, and he's different in the new than he is in the old. I mean, to me, it makes a very weak God, honestly. A non-omnipotent God doesn't. I mean, I don't understand the point of that God at all. But
Yeah.
but we already had a conversation with him about that, and I'm still baffled by that whole take on Christianity. But you have the answer in Hebrews 1. They say, well, the reason that, because this would have been my take, and this is what I explained in my second book, Journey Between the Veils, that God spoke finally in his Son, and so Jesus is the final answer, and so God no longer comes down and speaks to us because we couldn't possibly take it. It would destroy us, and it's sin and all that. So we have to wait until we get to heaven and no longer have these exact bodies as they are. They shed them, and then we're in an ethereal space with God somewhere. So there's just answers, but they're not good answers. It's just it's answers that only makes sense to somebody who already buys into this story as if it's true. So, when you really step back and you think about it, okay, first of all, these stories are written the way myths are written. I mean, it's written as though it's a human God, right? And every single one. Well, those are anthropomorphisms. Okay, you believe they're anthropomorphisms because you already believe the story's true, and so you have to come up with some kind of an answer. So they're just God appearing as man at times, but he's still God, right? But all the other myths, it follows the same type of thing. This human being God is always coming down and doing the stuff that he or she is doing. And then, of course, the answer as to why all of a sudden does God stop talking and interacting with people the way he did throughout the entire Old Testament. It'd be helpful if, one of these days he could like split an ocean right in front of my face. I mean, I'd be like, okay, I'd be a little more inclined to think there's a God if that, kind of thing happened. But that doesn't happen. And so Christians just come up with answers. Well, yeah, but he came finally in Jesus. And so no longer does he need to do that because we just have faith and he gives us faith. I mean, if you take a minute, you think about how silly that sounds, how ridiculous it is. You're only buying that because you already believe the story. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just quite silly that you believe in a God that just suddenly stopped talking to you. And your answer to that is, well, because he became a man, finally, a real man. And then he died and he rose and he went back to heaven. And because of all that, we don't have to see him anymore with our eyes. We just have to wait until we go to heaven. What? You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't add up if you think about it. Like you're just having to make up answers to fit the narrative that you believe to be true.
I can't explain it, man. All I can do is, observe the plot holes. So, yeah. Back to the Tower of Babel. So it says the last part that matters here is verse 8. It says, so the Lord scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it is called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the world. From there the Lord scattered them over the whole face of the earth. So We have a field of study called linguistics, and it is well established, and we know exactly, not exactly, but we know how languages have evolved over time in different geographical areas, to the point where we can trace them almost like a family tree all the way back to where they came from and how they developed, and each in its own like haplogroup, like just like genetics. We know that this did not happen, because this implies that this is where God, then this is what Christians will tell you, is this is where God essentially created all the languages of the world. And it says God scattered them from there all over the earth. How far do you think that was? Like all the entire earth? I mean, we've got 7 continents. How did God, just make this happen immediately? And it also says they stopped building the city. Okay, so don't you think some people might have stayed behind and kept working on it, the ones that actually could communicate together? Like why would all of them leave the Tower of Babel behind?
But as if every individual got a different language and no
Right.
longer could any of them talk to each other. I mean, that
That's what
doesn't.
it sounds like. I mean, surely that this happened, to groups so that they could actually work together in some way, or else we wouldn't have a population at all if everyone had a different language right at that time. It would have essentially extincted humanity.
Yeah.
Because if I can't understand my wife, or I can't understand my son, so I go my separate ways. I mean, it's obvious that it's splitting them up into groups of languages. So why did no one stay behind to keep working on the city and like reproduce from their family group and eventually accomplish this project?
It's a great question, and Elliot, all I can say is it's a miracle. God just he did it, man. He did it. He stopped them, because unless he did this, I don't know what he would have done, because we would have definitely climbed to heaven with his brick and mortar,
Definitely.
brick and tar. Sorry, I don't know how he
Yeah,
he
brick and
he was
tar.
he was definitely worried, and he did the job. Bible
But
translation is tricky, because this word earth in Hebrew can be land as well, and so unfortunately it's translated as earth when it should be land in some places, just to make more sense of the story. So to your question, spreading them all over the earth, yeah, that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. But if it's lands, the local geographical land is where he's spreading them around. That those are ways that I spoke away the problems of these stories. Like the flood, for example. Often it says earth, but it should have been translated land, at least in my opinion, and it would have made more sense of the story, because instead of considering a global earth flood, it would have been a local land flood. So those kinds of things helped with these stories, but it definitely doesn't. Like, to your point, if he is only spreading them all over the whole land now, then they're not really going that far. And if they're not going that far, then to your point, why didn't they continue to build the tower when God went away? I mean, and at some point they had to learn to communicate through the differences of languages. So once they did that, why couldn't they continue to build it? I mean, did the tower just fall at that point?
right. I've heard a lot of wild theories from fundamentalist Christians over the years, and one of them that stuck with me is a translation of a single Hebrew word. So I'm not going to hunt it down right now, but it's when they were giving the genealogies that mentioned someone named Peleg, and it says Peleg was named Peleg because in his days the earth was divided. And I've heard theologians say that word divided means like ripped asunder, or a violent cataclysmic act. And they take from that and they say, well, that's when God formed the continents. He ripped apart the earth. And that's what happened after the Tower of Babel, is he divided the continents and he put every language on their own continent. Like, wow, you got all that from a single translation of a single Hebrew word. Like, well done. You constructed an entire field of science out of one Hebrew word, and this is a post hoc rationalization, meaning you made it up after the fact to explain something that didn't make sense in its organic form. Because the Tower of Babel does not make sense to people when we understand like how languages work, or when we look at the absurdity of how it's actually worded, building it out of bricks and mortar, whatever, to reach heaven. So we have to come up with these advanced, fan fiction theologies. And one of them is, well, God ripped up the continents at the same time, and he put everybody on their own continent with their own language, and that's why we have, all this diversity over the globe. Like, okay, I'm supposed to just take this on faith because you translated a single Hebrew word,
right?
Like, well done. That's quite the leap.
Yep. These stories are incredible how we just bought them hook, line, and sinker. Like, one of the things that Matt Dillahunty says a lot, and when I listen to him, is that and not just him, a lot of people explain this, but you can't just take the whole book, the Bible, and say everything in it's true and it just stands. Like, everything has to be based on its own evidence. Like, the claim of the resurrection has to be demonstrated. The claim of walking on water has to be demonstrated. The claim, whatever the claims are, a claim of God coming down from heaven, that needs to be demonstrated, even if a God does exist. There's like sandals not wearing out. That needs to be demonstrated. And it's so interesting, talking donkey and talking snake. Why is it that we just are willing to accept it as though it's a true story without even examining it to say, I wonder if that part of the Bible is true, right? We just assume the whole Bible is true because we're just told it is, and never once questioned this story just doesn't seem true.
Well, they have to. Depending on your special flavor of Christianity, you have to take it all as true, because as soon as you start looking at these little stories and you analyze them to the point where, well, maybe this one's not true, suddenly, like, they all fall apart, because every one of them, like this, is built on the same house of cards. Like, they're all like this. They're all ridiculous. They're all to the point where you could pick them apart and say, well, then this one's not true and this one's not true. Like, why is one miracle true but another miracle isn't? Like, you can't differentiate between a true miracle and a false miracle in the Bible. So you have to take all of them or none of them.
Well,
and that's the Achilles heel of being a fundamentalist who believes this book is perfect.
Once you start questioning, like you're saying, you end up where Josh is, because you just make up, you just accept, you just choose you cherry pick. Like, I like this and I don't like that, and you quite literally just make up your own religion. You make up, and in a sense, you're actually making up your own source material too, because even though you're pulling it from the Bible, it's not the Bible, it's this portion of the Bible. And even in this portion, I don't like that part, so I'm going to leave that out. It's just what you literally just mold your own little storybook. And you say, I like this. This is what Jesus is about. This is what the Bible's about. Well, no, it's not. You've eliminated most of the Bible, and now you've just declared this the Bible.
The Bible is either true or the Bible is false. If you pick and choose, I think you violated one of the laws of logic. I think it's the law of the excluded middle. Like, a statement is either true or a statement is false. It can't be both. It can't be half true, half false. Like, that's what the Bible is. You either accept it or you reject it, because as soon as you pick and choose, it's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
So I got one more
real
quick that illustrates this idea that God is not all knowing. God does not know the future, and God is very human in the fact that he changes his mind a lot. So, like, we know that when it came time for the flood, God regretted that he had made man and was going to, erase him. He's going to fix his mistake. So if we jump forward,
Hezekiah, right?
What's that?
You going to Hezekiah?
Hezekiah? We're going. Well, hey, that's one. I know what you're talking about. But this one is choice. So this is my favorite chapter in the entire Bible, because it illustrates the most number of absurdities. But I'm only going to pick one verse out of this entire chapter to make my point. Okay. So this is Exodus chapter 32. It's the golden calf chapter. So
ooh, that's a fun one.
We know that
threw it in the fire and out it came.
See, there are so many problems with that chapter that you're actually picking out a different one that I'm going to go to.
That's my favorite part of the whole thing. He's like, we just threw it in the fire and out came the golden calf.
Every verse in Exodus 32 is a plot hole. Yeah. But so Moses goes up to the top of the mountain to basically get the 10 Commandments from God. and he's up there for so long, which makes no sense why it would take so long for God to give him these tablets. He's up there for so long that the people essentially start to doubt, and so they gonna create their own god or whatever with this golden calf. But while Moses is up there with God, God figures out what's happening down below,
Yeah.
and so God says to Moses, he says, "I have seen these people," the Lord said to Moses, "and they are a stiff-necked people.
What verse are you
Now
on?
leave me alone." What's that?
What verse are you
Verse
on?
9.
Okay.
Verse 9. "Now leave me alone so that my anger may burn against them and that I may destroy them. Then I will make you into a great nation." Telling Moses this. Now, God has brought these people out of Egypt. Well, he brought them to Egypt, had them enslaved. It's a long, long process. It's a long story. And then he brings all these plagues against Egypt to convince Pharaoh to let them go. He parts the Red Sea. He brings them into the desert. He does all this with the intention of like making these people a great nation. God's put a lot of effort into this.
Yeah.
He's put a lot of political capital into making this happen. Okay. And the first thing that goes wrong, God is like, "That's it. I'm going to destroy them." What? You're literally on the mountaintop giving Moses the first version of the law and the 10 commandments, and you can't even get Moses back down to the camp to get it to these people before you're going to just destroy them. I mean, it sounds ridiculous. Like, "I have seen these people," the Lord said to Moses. "Oh, no kidding. You've seen these people? Wow, that's some news here. I thought you've been seeing these people forever. And they are a stiff-necked people. Like, you didn't know that before? I thought you were an omniscient God. Now leave me alone so that my anger may burn against them." So God's exhibiting anger. He's going to go into solitude, and he's going to hype himself up to the point where it says that I may destroy them. Then I will make you into a great nation. Make who into a great nation? You're about to destroy them. You're talking to Moses. You're going to make Moses into a great nation by himself?
I guess like
What are you
Abraham.
talking about?
He's going to start over with Moses. Like he's going to destroy all of Abraham's kids and start over with Moses.
Right. This makes no sense. Yeah, he's going to wipe out Abraham's bloodline and only save Moses, and he's going to make Moses into a great nation.
Which actually doesn't make any sense of God's character, because he made a promise to Abraham and now he's about to break it.
Yeah. But let's just assume that somehow this is going to work out, that he'll make them a great nation again, even though he's destroyed them. Let's assume that Moses has a family and he's just going to stick with Moses. Okay, that's fine. The next verse says, "But Moses sought the favor of the Lord his God. Lord," he said, "why should your anger burn against your people, whom you brought out of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand?" That's exactly what I was just saying. Why should the Egyptians say, "It was with evil intent that he brought them out, to kill them in the mountains and wipe them off the face of the earth"? No kidding. Like, Moses is reasoning with God in the exact same way that I just said. Like, why would he do this? Like, Moses is saying this to God. Why would you do this? So God is being irrational, like a human, and Moses is reasoning with him to try to get him to don't do this. It'll look really bad. Everyone will say that you did this on purpose to bring them out to the desert and destroy them.
Dude, this whole thing, like starting back in verse 10, sounds like you're talking to an 8-year-old who's losing his temper and just is angry about something. Leave me alone. I'm going to burn my anger. It's like, God's like, leave me alone. He's like all pissed off, and Moses like, calm down, God. Don't you understand? This doesn't make any sense. It's like he's reasoning.
And then he says, "Remember your servants Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, to whom you swore by your own self, I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and I will give your descendants all this land I promised them, and it will be their inheritance forever."
That's
like,
what I was
remember God? Like, God's not omniscient here. He doesn't know this for himself.
He's like, oh,
you have to calm him down. And then verse 14, "Then the Lord relented and did not bring his people the disaster that he had threatened." So he changes his mind again. Well, you know what? This is interesting. If you can reason with God and get him to change his mind and not bring destruction and judgment on people, then I, as an atheist, am going to wait until after I die and I have to appear before God to be judged. And like Moses, I'm going to reason with God and say, "God, you created me like this. You wanted a relationship with me. You made me a sinner. Like, please don't bring your judgment upon me." And God will be like, you know what? Hey, you're right. Sorry about that. And then God will change his mind, like he did how many times in the Old Testament about judgment? We saw the same thing with the atomic bombing of Sodom and Gomorrah with Lot, or I think it was Abraham, was arguing with God, like, well, what if I find, this many righteous people? Will you change your mind? And God's like,
It
yeah,
was
I'll do
Abraham.
that. See,
Yeah, Abraham
you can
was negotiating with God. Yeah,
negotiate with God. So why can't I negotiate with God?
right.
What's the difference?
But here's the other side of it. The Christian will say, "Oh well, obviously God knows everything, and this is an anthropomorphism. It's just a way of communicating in a way a human can understand. So God is not really changing his mind. He's just moving along with, in this case, with Moses, and at the end he brings about the exact plan he wanted anyway. But
So he's lying.
exactly. But that's the problem here. So essentially, he's deceiving Moses, and just so Moses can like talk him back into him, like, I was just kidding, Moses. Where do we get? I mean, there's nothing in the story that makes God out to be a jokester. Like, if that were the case, then he should at the end of the story be like, "Got you," right? That'd be funny. Right. But that's not what he does. Like,
and he did that with Abraham going up on the mountain to sacrifice Isaac. He brings him all the way to the threshold. Then it's like, psych! I was just testing you.
Got you.
So what's he doing here? Like, are we to believe that God is telling the truth when he says that he's going to bring destruction on these people? And or are we to believe that God is testing everyone all the time? So we can't ever tell when God is being serious, when God's being truthful, or when God's just being a liar and he's playing practical jokes or testing you all the time. Like, if you can't tell the difference, then this is a worthless God.
And honestly, like, if this is what he's like as a father, I want nothing to do with it. Because as a father, doing this to your kids, tricking them, telling them deceitful things, that how angry you are and how much you're going to destroy things, and having them beg you to change your mind just so they don't see the wrath of you as a dad come out. Like, what kind of a father does that shit, man? That's horrible. This is not good fathering at all.
Yeah. And of course, like I said, Exodus 32 is full of plot holes. Why it's my favorite chapter. And if I go back, like before God said he was going to destroy these people, God actually tells Moses what is happening down in the camp. Then the Lord said to Moses, go down, because your people, whom you brought out of Egypt, Moses brought them out of Egypt? I thought God did. Have become corrupt. I'm on 7. I'm going backwards.
You're going backwards, okay.
Just for some context for my next plot hole here. So it says 7. Then the Lord said to Moses, go down, because your people, who you have brought out of Egypt, have become corrupt. They have been quick to turn away from what I commanded them, and have made themselves an idol cast in the shape of a calf. They have bowed down to it and sacrificed to it, and have said, these are your gods, Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. And then God says to Moses, I've seen these people, they're stiff-necked, leave me alone with my anger, I'm going to destroy them. So Moses knows what's happening in the camp. God just told him. Then Moses says, oh, don't do it. Don't do it. Let me go down and fix this. Don't murder everyone. So he reasons with God, and then jump ahead to verse 15. It says, Moses turned and went down the mountain with the 2 tablets of the covenant of the law in his hands. Okay, and then he essentially he finds out for himself, even though God already told him, he already knows. It says, when Moses approached the camp, this is 19. When Moses approached the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, his anger burned, and he threw the tablets out of his hands, breaking them to pieces at the foot of the mountain. And he took the calf the people had made and burned it in the fire, and he ground it to powder and scattered it on the water and made the Israelites drink it. And so Moses goes on this rampage suddenly and does exactly what he asked God not to do. Further down, I believe he divides the camp and has them kill each other. It says, go back and forth through the camp from one end to the other. This is Moses talking. Each man strap a sword to his side, each killing his brother and friend and neighbor. The Levites did as Moses commanded, and that day 3,000 of the people died. So Moses goes down, even though he knows what's happening, so he's ready for it. He gets mad anyway, does exactly what he didn't want God to do, kills 3,000 Israelites. He has them kill their neighbors and their friends. Like, wow.
Maybe God did say, just it's not in the story, I'm just playing with you, Moses, a joke. And then when Moses got to the bottom of the mountain, he thought it was real and he was really pissed.
Oh, maybe Moses didn't believe God
He didn't
because
believe
God
God.
is
He thought it was
not
joke.
believable.
Well, I mean, if God just does weird things like verse 24, this is my favorite part where he asks Aaron what the heck you were doing. Aaron said, I said to them, whoever has any gold, let them tear it off. So they gave it to me. And I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. I love that part of the
That
story.
if that actually happened, then maybe the calf was a real God.
Maybe
He came right out of the fire.
just popped out.
He formed himself. Maybe they had good cause to worship it.
I mean, if that actually happened, I'd have better cause to worship that than God, who never seems to appear at any time you need him.
So now, after all of this, this is my favorite verse of this entire chapter, because after all of that nonsense of God threatening to destroy everyone, Moses talking him out of it, Moses going down to the camp and poisoning the people with the gold water, and then going through the camp and having people kill their friends and neighbors, and we're getting all the way to the end here. Now remember, God wasn't going to take any action because Moses asked him not to. The very last chapter, completely out of context, comes out of nowhere. Or last verse is verse 35, and it says, and the Lord struck the people with a plague because of what they did with the calf Aaron had made. And then God sent the plague, like it was a normal Tuesday. Like, I thought he said he wasn't going to do anything. I thought Moses reasoned him out of it. Did Moses not bring enough death and destruction to the people out of revenge for worshiping a calf? Nope. And the Lord struck the people with a plague. Okay. I'm supposed to take it as a true story, even though nothing in this chapter is consistent or logical.
No, it really isn't, man. It absolutely isn't. And it makes God out to be childish, wishy-washy, uncertain of himself, can't make up his mind, angry, loose cannon,
ignorant,
liar. If I didn't say that one yet, everything about this paints God out to be this ridiculous God. It's absurd. Nothing in the story makes him look out to be the powerful God that he is. In fact, he doesn't even look good in Josh's view.
and I mean, which is why Josh has abandoned a lot of this. But the moral of the story here. Well, Christians will say, I try to put my Christian hat back on, and how would they respond to this? I don't know how I would have responded as a Christian, because I was never confronted with this stuff directly. I never sat there in church and read this stuff for myself and that really doesn't make sense. What if an atheist comes and uses this against me in an argument, or it makes the Bible look silly by pointing these things out? I never really saw the plot holes because I wasn't looking for them. So I suppose one way a Christian might respond to us, they'd say, well, you're cherry picking the worst parts of the Bible. You're looking for these problems. You got to take it as a whole or put it in its context, whatever, blah, blah, blah. My response to that would be, we're not cherry picking. We can do this with just about every passage in the Old Testament, especially the Old Testament, because that's where a lot of these absurdities were before people decided that maybe we should rewrite, we should write our next divine revelation from God to maybe not be crazy, to make more sense in 1,000 years later, when these things weren't happening, where it wasn't obvious to everyone. It's easy to write history to be crazy, but you can't really have history work in your favor for that in the present, because crazy things just aren't happening. So maybe when it came time to write the New Testament, they were stuck with what they had at the time. These things weren't happening. But we're not cherry picking, because I can do this everywhere in the Old Testament. Just open up your Bible randomly to the Old Testament. You're going to find something that's either ridiculous, wild story, or it has plot holes in it. Another one, I'm not going to look it up, but again, God judges somebody for disobeying him after a battle. Some guy had hoarded.
Yeah.
So what? Yeah, and what does God say? He says, I'm going to wipe you out of history, out of the whatever, so that no one will ever know your name because of what you've done. Yet here we are, thousands of years later, and we know his name. That was a clear failure. If God had kept to his promise that he would erase him from the history of the world, and his name specifically, we wouldn't know the guy's name. Yet we have the story all about this guy. Like, we know about him and what happened.
I don't know if that was Achan. That might have been somebody else, but it also could be Achan. I can't remember.
But the judgment was specifically, I'm going to wipe you out of history, so no one will know your name. Yet here I am knowing the guy's name.
Whoever it was,
second, but I can look it up. It's in there.
Your point still remains. Whether that particular story was Achan or another story, it doesn't matter, because I know the person's name was in the story. I know what you're talking about. But there was like one or two others that did that. But Achan especially, because he wiped out his whole family and stoned them because he took, a couple of pieces of whatever money or whatever from the land that they were going to just basically burn up anyway. That in itself is stupid. Like, it just doesn't even make sense. God is so pissed off because he didn't obey him and he took some plunder.
Yeah, but if you want to write somebody out of history, you don't write them in it.
Yeah, get rid of it. Right. We shouldn't even know the story. Like,
right.
The story wouldn't even be known. Right. Exactly. But listen, man, even if we were cherry picking, does that matter? Does that change the fact that you have ridiculous, absurd stories in your Bible that don't add up and they're contradictory, make God out to be a silly little 8-year-old? You have these stories in your Bible. I don't care if we're cherry picking them or not cherry picking them.
Christians will cherry pick to attack other religions. For example, they love to talk about how in the Quran, Muhammad flew to heaven on a winged horse and he split the moon in half. Isn't that cherry picking? One absurdity to make the entire religion look bad. Like, you're doing exactly the same thing when you fight other religions.
That's right. And so you have to realize that if you're going to take your whole book and say the whole thing's true, and then just ignore the fact that there are parts that just aren't, you've just now realized, you have to realize you've just now stated that your whole book is not true. And if your whole book is not true, and now you realize parts in there that aren't true and parts that are silly and none, you really got to start questioning whether that book is true at all. I mean, because it puts a big hole right in your whole philosophy, your whole thought process, that this book is the holy word of God and it has no errors and nothing's wrong with it. It can't be the holy book of God, though, if you have these problems with it. It just can't.
Yeah.
So
even just a little bit more of an explanation inside these stories would have made them just a little bit more believable. But we don't have it.
Yeah. But definitely the God going back and forth and being deceitful with whether he's going to kill everybody or not, that's just a real problem for me. It probably would have been a problem for me even as a Christian had I actually thought of that. But I guess I was just too invested in Christianity to consider that was the way God was acting.
Yeah, and like here's another example. The mark of Cain. So Cain kills his brother Abel, and God judges him, and he's going to put a mark on him so everybody knows who he is. It's a curse, and Cain cries out to God and says, now everyone will be after me to murder me. Like, what have you done? And God's like, oh yeah, that's probably a bad idea. Well, I'll make it so that no one's allowed to do that.
Yeah, that's what happened.
He reverses the curse. Like, anybody that comes after you will be judged.
Right.
Like, what's the point of the mark of Cain? It's just, we're constantly reversing these judgments.
Right.
And you'd also mentioned Hezekiah. Maybe you want to hit that real fast too. That's a similar thing.
God
has
turns back the clock or something for like 3 days or something like that, if I remember correctly. And he ends up letting him live after he promised he was going to die, and then he just keeps begging, and God's like, all right, I'll let you live.
Yeah. And how much longer did he live? I mean, he extended his life a good bit.
Oh yeah, a good bit.
Even though he was going to kill him.
Right. No, he lived a full life after that, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've looked.
So the moral of the story is you can negotiate with God, and you can get God to revoke his judgments if you use reason and logic on God. which apparently God wasn't using when he made the judgment.
Right. Which is where open theism shows up, which is very much similar to the position that Josh holds with process theology, but it's essentially open theism, where God doesn't really know anything.
Right.
He's suppressed his knowledge. But that we've talked about that before, that in itself is problematic, because now God is no longer omnipotent if he's suppressing, or he can't be omniscient if he has the power to suppress. It's like, can God make a stone so big you can't lift it? It's just like you're dealing with absurdities now in talking about a God that isn't actually a God.
So this was one of the things that I had to confront when I was on my way originally, like when I was first starting my journey out of Christianity, when I was having my doubts. And my first serious doubt was about hell and eternal conscious torment in the lake of fire for people that don't believe the story. And it occurred to me while I was still kind of believed in God. I didn't call myself an ex-Christian yet, but it occurred to me that this is so absurd, this is so unjust, that it's possible that this idea of hell is yet another test by God, and there isn't actually a hell. He's using this to test people, to test their faith, and to see if they will accept something so absurd and ridiculous. And he's not actually going to throw people into the lake of fire, because it's so ridiculous. And so we have precedent for that with all these stories that we've been talking about, where God changes his mind, or he psychs you out, or, oh yeah, I wasn't actually going to have you kill your only son. I was just testing you. Well, then why can't hell be a test as well?
Well, if you're God, right, and you have basically infinite power, knowledge, you created the universe, and you're a Trinity, so you're in perfect fellowship already with persons. You don't need God didn't create the world because he was lonely or sad or deficient in some way. I mean, that isn't the purpose of creation. If God was deficient, well, then now he's not sufficient. He's deficient. So you couldn't have created the world because he was deficient in any way. So if God is superior, infinite, in perfect harmony with the Trinity, has fellowship, never lonely, can do anything he freaking wants whatsoever, what is the purpose and point of condemning people in sin just because they don't like you, or because they don't want to follow your commands? Or are you a narcissist? Which is a deficiency? Why does he care so much about what the fuck we do? He already has it all in himself. If I had that, if I was that, I would just not pay mind to these people. I'd create them and say, hey, you want to be with me? That's cool, because I'm awesome, and come hang out if you like. And if you obey my commands, it's better for you. But I don't care if you do or don't. Have fun. Why would it bother me? Why is he so offended? Because you have offended a holy God. What?
Right.
What is he, 3?
That's
Christ.
A narcissist. That's an act that you would expect from a narcissist.
Yes.
to create beings knowing that they're not going to follow you, so that you can punish them. It's like I have to create enemies so that I can slay them, so I can defeat them, so I can fight them and destroy them. That's a narcissistic act. Why not just create your creation to love you in the first place? Oh, that's not good enough. I'm not going to go and make a best friend. I'm also going to go and make a worst enemy, so that I can spend my time hating them and plotting their demise. That's something that a narcissist or a psychopath would do. That's not something that an all-loving being who wanted company, who wanted creation would do.
Absolutely. And the whole argument, well, but then it's free will. God had to give free will in order for it to be loving, and blah blah blah, and this whole thing.
You give you free will but punish you for using it?
Exactly.
How does that make sense?
Right.
What is the point of free will? You gave them free will so they could choose to want you, but if they use that free will, you punish them for using it. That's not free will. Punishing someone for making a decision you don't like is not free will. They don't have the free will to make that decision, or they will be judged for it.
isn't it punishment enough that if you are truly this infinitely desirable being, if the people don't choose to participate in that, isn't that punishment enough because they're just stupid and ignorant? Why do you have to send them to hell for that on top of it? It's already their loss.
Yeah.
I don't get it. What does God stand to gain by doing all this? It's
so just... the free will excuse really pisses me off, because like I'll ask Christians and I never get a straight answer for this. I'm like, okay, free will is a good thing because God gave it. So this is a good thing. So is there free will in heaven? Can you use your free will in heaven to then sin? Oh, you can't do that. Okay. So there's no sin in heaven. So then there's no free will in heaven, because free will is what leads to sin. So free will is not a good thing because you don't have it in heaven. So God is giving something that's not a good thing. He's essentially giving people the ability to sin through this free will. So God is creating free will. God is creating sin. God is responsible for sin. God is sin.
It's just logic, man. It's just everything you're saying is completely logical. But it's like when you're so inundated in this story and you just can't, the sheer thought that this can't be true for a Christian is so, I don't even know the word. It's like, it's so ludicrous in your mind. It's
unfathomable.
It's unfathomable. Thank you. That like they're willing to ignore every piece of logic that you just said just to hold on to the story. They just can't fathom that they've been duped. Dude, and I get it. I was duped. You were duped. It sucks a lot. But it happened. And you can continue to hold on to this ridiculous story and pretend like it's true when you know there's problems. Or you can just stop and at least have whatever remaining time you have on earth to enjoy it and stop trying to appease the whims of a 8-year-old God that just can't control his anger and lies to you all the time and created this thing called free will or whatever so that you can be punished for all eternity just because you chose not to enjoy an infinitely glorious and wonderful being who apparently would be sufficient in himself but can't help himself but care more about what you think of him than he does about just being awesome. Like, it's just weird, man. Like,
yeah. I'm glad I'm done with it.
Dude, you are not kidding, man. And every time I talk about it, I'm just like, holy crap, am I glad I'm out of that? Just can't believe how long I was blinded to this stuff, man. 42 years. It's crazy, man. It is
well,
crazy.
As I think it was Mark Twain that said, it's far easier to convince someone of a lie than it is to talk them out of it.
Yep.
You once you commit to something, you don't want to let it go, because then you look stupid if you tell everybody, hey, I was duped. So you just stick with the lie.
Yep. It's a con,
but,
man.
Hey, everybody's got the free will, I guess, to keep believing the lie of Christianity.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, it's definitely a con. It's not necessarily an intentional con. I don't know that everybody that believes is intentionally walking around trying to con people, but it's a con nonetheless. If you're a part of a con, you are conning others, even if you don't mean to.
Yes, you don't have to be a liar to tell lies.
That's
it's
right.
Still a lie, even if you believe it.
That's right. So that is what Elliot and I are trying to do, because every Christian has their own version of Christianity, and we are here to unravel the con in your conversion. Elliot, any last thoughts before we say goodbye to everybody?
That's a perfect place to stop.
It is. Well, everybody, happy Thanksgiving. We are great. We are glad that you got to enjoy this episode because hopefully you are thankful for what we just presented. Good Lord. All right, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. Have a great day. Peace.